I'm Catherine Mazzone here on behalf of Mojo Streaming, welcoming Andrea Crosta. You're currently the executive director of Earth League International, which I read to be an organization that protects wildlife and the planet using intelligence gathering, which is pretty
Correct.
awesome, and by investigating and exposing wildlife criminals and poachers.
Right.
I first want to get an idea. You're also a consultant, an international consultant.
I was
You
before.
were.
Yeah.
So how did those overlap at all? Is that how one led to the other, or how did that work?
So my circle of life is really wide and was actually also very unusual. So I was born with a great love for nature and a great desire to protect nature. I was born like that since I can remember. So my first master degree was at the University of Milano, was natural sciences and zoology. And I started working for an Italian foundation, working in conservation with researchers around the world. And I thought that would have been my life basically. But then life happens, and so I got curious about business. So I did another master degree in business administration and entrepreneurship, and without never leaving conservation, but I jumped into business. So in '98, I launched the second e-commerce company in history of shopping online in Italy. Was prehistory of shopping online with Microsoft. And I went all the way up, and then the Nasdaq crashed in 2001, and I went all the way down. And I sold the whole thing, and I was already in this space of more or less technology, and for a series of factors. To make a long story short, I spent almost 20 years as a sort of business developer in the space of high tech and technologies for security, intelligence, homeland security, anti-terrorism, all kind of software that you can imagine that governments use to fight crime in general and terrorism. Until I was doing this work, anti-piracy off the coast of Somalia, all kind of stuff. And in 2010, I was in Kenya for my job. And it was right in the middle of the elephant poaching crisis when we were losing 40,000 elephants per year for the ivory. And I saw with my own eyes what was happening. I went out with the rangers multiple times. And I also noticed that the whole world was asking the rangers to solve this problem. And I thought, but that's ridiculous. We are talking about the fourth largest criminal enterprise in the world, almost $260 billion per year. And you are asking the rangers to, it's like fighting international narco trafficking and asking the LAPD here in Washington, Los Angeles to solve the whole problem. Of course they can't, they don't. So I said, okay, I start asking, so who is using professional intelligence? Because of my past 20 years working in that field from a technology side, I had a lot of connections. So I was very familiar with that word of intelligence. So who is using intelligence to fight environmental crime? And the answer was nobody. And so I decided to do this really crazy thing. So to stop my work and begin this sort of obsession to one day being able to create the first intelligence agency for Earth using real professional and then I started recruiting former FBI, former CIA, crime analyst, crypto specialists, and to create a small team with the mission to go all the way highest possible level of environmental crime and laser focus only on the biggest traffickers in the world, nobody below them. So we are not working at poaching level. Poachers are just poor people trying to make a living. So they have zero intelligence value. They're not aware of what happens after them. They just kill an animal or cut a tree or illegally fish something, and then they resell it to somebody else. So we research the whole illegal supply chains internationally, and we are and we are really identifying all the most important wildlife traffickers and environmental criminals in the world. And and that's our job, our only job. We don't do anything. And then we with undercover operation, of course, we got a lot of information from these people, and then we help law enforcement, first of all, to understand what's going on, and then maybe to go after these people one by one. So that's how I transition. Yeah, so that's why it's difficult sometimes to explain how I got where here.
So to be clear, the work you were doing before this, it was conservation work.
I started from working in conservation when I
Right.
was 17, 18, and I
Okay.
actually never stopped. But
Right.
for almost 20 years, I was not my main job. I was just sitting on boards and helping other organizations, but my main job was business, and then business and related to technologies for security and homeland security, anti-terrorism. There are technologies that are produced by very specialized companies, private companies, and then governments or governmental organizations buy these products to, for example, spy a phone of a terrorist, or intercept communication, or enter computers and things like that. So I've been doing, or protect data. And then I also did I worked for different security companies, so we were doing, protecting people at high risk, for example, in Africa, for example, or during the piracy days, we protecting the vessels, leaving the Gulf and getting into Europe. And so I did all kind of that stuff. Never leave it. Never. I mean, the reason why I stopped doing that is when I was in Kenya, is because I was realizing that I was not happy, because I was not following my real, only true passion, where I was born with, so which was protect nature. And I was just looking for the right way to protect nature, because I didn't want to copy somebody else. I didn't want to do something that already millions of NGOs are doing, was what the point. And that's how I came up with the idea, okay, maybe I can try to do that. Yeah.
So and I think that's awesome, because you took activism to the next level. It's not just
no. In fact, we don't
work.
exactly. In fact, I have the utmost respect for activists, but we are not activists. We are professionals coming from different fields, and we are applying our expertise and to a very specific cause, which is environmental crime.
Right. Which I don't know of another organization that's doing that are not activists. You know what I mean?
And again, great respect. There are a couple of organizations that they do investigation, and investigation is not the same as intelligence. We do long-term intelligence and undercover operation. We infiltrate networks, and we get up close and personal, even friends, with the most important wildlife traffickers in the world. And then while we are staying with them, we are extracting all kind of information, so we can stay with them for years in order to really understand how they do what they do. And another thing that set us apart from other organizations is that we work a lot on what is called convergence, which is the convergence of environmental crime with other serious crimes, mostly money laundering, human smuggling, and narco trafficking. And we collect information also on that, because then when we share information with trusted law enforcement agencies, it's much easier to get their interest. In other words, if I collect information about rhino trafficking, ivory trafficking, or jaguar trafficking only, it's very difficult to get the attention of big US federal agencies, for example. But if on top of that, I put money laundering and human smuggling, then all of a sudden I have their attention. So we are trying to change the game. Okay, so the game has been played so far. So, but in order to change the game, first to know the game very well, and then you change it. And so, with the help of convergence, we are trying to. I call it the reverse Al Capone approach, meaning Al Capone was taken down for crimes that at the end that were less serious, much less serious than what he committed was tax evasion. We are doing the opposite. We are trying to go after the most important wildlife traffickers in the world and environmental criminals in the world for crimes that are more serious than wildlife crime, like money laundering, for example, or human smuggling. And that's the key, in my opinion, to move forward and to change the game in our favor. Otherwise, the bad guys will always be ahead of us, I guarantee. After 10 years in this business, they know very well how to do what they do, and there's no chance to go ahead of us, to be ahead of them, honestly.
When you say change the game, do you mean people or officials or law enforcement paying closer attention and
Not only,
actually
but
going after the wildlife criminals instead of
yes,
just
but I yes, first of all, but by what I mean with change the game is when you go after the wildlife criminals, if they're big enough, of course. We're talking about the top players in the world here, not poachers or illegal
right.
fishermen. We're talking about top guys. So by changing the game, I mean when you go after that guy who is, for example, one of the most important wildlife trafficker in Brazil. I know it's counterintuitive. Forget wildlife. Go after. Use wildlife. Use money laundering. Use human smuggling. Use other crimes. You will get rid of him for a longer time. You will jail him forever. If you keep going after this guy only for wildlife crime, for a series of factors, including very weak laws and public prosecutors that are not familiar with wildlife crime, they don't care about you. It's like it's really. I mean, and that's, in my opinion, that was the main problem of the past probably 20 years. Everyone, NGOs, media, donors, government, they focus only on the poachers, only on the small fish, only on the low-hanging fruits, completely forgetting the big traffickers. Imagine to fight narco trafficking like this. Imagine what will happen just by busting people selling dope here in the park, or awareness campaigns. Please don't do drugs. Imagine to what would be so. And this is how we have been fighting environmental crime, just focusing on these two, either small fish. And why? Because I understand why. It's easier. It's much easier not only to do it. If you ask me, please start arresting poachers in South Africa, I can arrest 10 a day. It's not a big deal. But it's also very easy to fundraise for this stuff, okay? Because it's very visual. It's about rangers, it's about money, it's about animals dying, it's about poachers, and I give you the weapons so you can go out and patrol and kill. Very visual, very cool, very sexy, very easy to fundraise. The same thing on the awareness campaign. Let's put a billboard in Beijing National Airport. Let's use these 10 celebs that are dying to post something on Instagram to make awareness. Here's the money, very easy to fundraise. But when you want to jump into the right in the middle, where the big traffickers operate is dark, is dirty, takes a long time to get to these people. We, as an organization, we can share with the public maybe 40% of what we do. The rest is unshareable. Then things becomes very difficult, super difficult to fundraise. Hence, nobody wants to do it because it's a waste. They don't want to do it, of course. And that's the problem. In the meantime, those big traffickers got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now they're really big.
So how do you get the money to do what you do?
With a lot of difficulty. With a lot of, we have to, because donors are really not prepared. They are used to of the narrative of the past 20 years. They're used to that narrative. The narrative is about poachers, or let's change the mind of the consumers in China, for example. They are used to that narrative, so they put money on that, and they're not familiar with what is happening at the trafficking level. They don't know that the traffickers is a driver of the whole thing, even more than the consumer, because the consumer tomorrow will stop finding, I don't know, ivory in the shop, illegal or not, and they will stop buying it. Is the traffickers have been providing the stuff for decades, setting the price, make it available, making sure that it gets into that country. So, but they're unknown. We call them ghosts. They're ghosts, no face, no name. And this is when you get really dangerous. So these people are dangerous, not because of what they do, but because they're ghosts, because nobody knows them. And this is when you really, because you can do whatever you want. And the attention is still always on the poacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're trying to change this, of course.
So when I hear that, I think of two things. First of all, don't you think that the fact that these laws are so weak is a significant issue that should be addressed as well, because
Yes,
why shouldn't you be able to bring forth these atrocious crimes by these traffickers, wildlife crimes, and have them be treated not the same as human trafficking, but still serious enough to where we don't have to worry about them coming back out and harming other animals.
yeah.
Is that an initiative that you all are?
No, we're not part of this. We are fact finders and information and intelligence providers. So we produce a lot of, for example, confidential reports about these people and these trafficking networks, and we share with law enforcement. It's not my job to change policy, but we bring to the table really, really unique data and information coming straight from the mouth of the most important traffickers in the world. So this is information that you either go there and get it, or you will never get it. There's no other place. So you have to get friendly with them and become one of them, and then get this information. But I can tell you this about laws. Laws are important, but if you do not apply the law, if you don't enforce the laws means absolutely nothing. Okay, this is the first thing. In fact, there are countries around the world that in the past years made significant progress, updated their laws against wildlife trafficking, and still it's happening. Why? Because they don't apply the law. You can have the second thing I wanted to do, don't be fooled just by the law. Think about narco trafficking, okay? If they get you with a suitcase of cocaine in an airport, your life is over. That in some countries you actually get executed, but that's it. They will put you away forever with this amount of cocaine. And still, lots and lots of people try, because what is crime? Crime at the end of the day is very simple. It's fast money. That's it. That is crime. Crime is money without doing the right thing, right? So you will always have, no matter what laws you will always have a lot of people willing to break the law just to make good money, especially in countries where, imagine, for example, in certain parts of Africa, traffickers, big traffickers, they can offer these people 1, 2, 3 years of salary to kill an animal, okay, to kill an elephant, for example. 3 years of salary to someone who has no job and maybe a family of 10 waiting for him at home.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter which law you have in the country, I would say yes. Yes, of course I kill an animal for 3 years of salary. It will change my life and the life of my family. So that's why I'm always say, it's very dangerous to oversimplify something that is complex, okay? You achieve nothing by oversimplifying things. Unfortunately, again, media, NGOs, they need to oversimplify because they need to talk to people and they need to be, so the narrative is constantly oversimplified. And again, we're doing a big favor to the big traffickers because they're always out of this narrative.
And you bring up something that I wanted to talk about as well. When you mentioned the media, what I've noticed is kind of a shift or an evolution in wildlife conservation related media. We're seeing a lot more of it, and we're seeing more authenticity. It's transformed, and you have been involved in several films that received a lot of acclaim. So how did you decide to do something like that, knowing that the media sometimes doesn't always get it right? Was there a lot of consideration? Was there a lot of discussion? And how important was it that you took that on so that you could create more awareness?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I realized that our work without the media is not so powerful. So we need to get the media on board somehow, at least the right media. And that's why, when they asked me for the first time, for the first documentary to do the Ivory Game a few years ago, I said, yes, these are the rules, of course. It was not easy because we work with a lot of undercover operators. They cannot be seen. They cannot be, it's a lot of, but once you get that, it's totally doable. And the Ivory Game was a great, very powerful product. You can still watch it on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
The second is Sea of Shadows and Legal Fishing in Mexico with National Geographic, both co-produced by Leonardo DiCaprio. And we are working now on a third product And in the meantime, I opened my own film production company to be sure to be able to produce good stuff and to have editing control and to, to be sure that the narrative is correct on the way up, because we in the first two documentaries I had no control, and then so I just saw the final product, and I could have changed a few things, honestly. But that's super important, to change the narrative, to change the way we talk about this problem, to stop calling people who are so back in the days, would you have called Pablo Escobar I don't know, a drug, how do you call it, these people who sell drug in the street?
A drug dealer?
Yeah, but of very small caliber, like the one.
Yeah, like a pusher.
Yeah, pusher. So would you have called, would you have called Pablo Escobar was a pusher in your opinion?
No.
No, exactly. In this space, we are still calling poachers everyone. Narrative, changing the narrative starts from these things that are not little. Okay, you don't, and so with these films, we are trying to show the people, hey, there is another level of environmental crime, wildlife trafficking, that you are not aware of it, because they're ghosts. Again, our job is to put name and faces on these people, and also explain how they do what they do, and at the same time how they explain that these people are capable. During the same meeting, they can offer you 3 tons of shark fins, 300 jaguar fangs, rhino, and then they switch like this, and they start talking about human smuggling, how they smuggle 300 people through this border every month, every day. They make $500,000 from human smuggling, and then they change again, then money laundering. Same people, same network. They explain you how they launder $500,000 a day doing this and doing that, fooling, using crypto. And so these are the same people. We are trying to explain everyone, you want to fight environmental crime? Okay, so you have to be aware of this level. If you're not aware of this level, you are a Boy Scout. They absolutely do not care whatever you do. Doesn't matter law, poaching, anti-poaching. They simply don't care. Exactly in the same way, back in the days, imagine to go to Pablo Escobar and telling him, wow, they arrested 100 people in Los Angeles. I don't care. I really don't care. I have millions more of these people. So it's there's nothing positive about it. So we're trying to change these also with documentaries and filmmaking.
That's actually, you answered several questions. So how does someone do that? If, say that I wanted to get involved and I wanted to be authentic in what I was showing in my wildlife conservation filmmaking, how would you suggest people do that? Because I think that there is a strong urge, but there's also, and I've asked other filmmakers this, but there's also a responsibility that you have. So how do you satisfy that responsibility while also, presenting a great product?
That's a big question. Absolutely. And I had the multiple discussions with the producers and the director on the previous 2 documentaries, because I was at the beginning. Now I'm not green anymore, but I was green. So everything was new to me. So, but I saw the discussion of balancing, okay, this is real, this is true, we have to say this, but it's boring and it's not visual. So no. And that's a big, for me, that's no, this is the main thing. This is the problem. You have to come up with a way creatively to show it, with graphic novel, with different kind of, tools, whatever. But if you leave it outside the story, they would miss the point. And when you miss the point, you don't work for the cause anymore. Then the documentary becomes, or the film becomes, only a product to make money. And this is where we are not agree anymore. I understand that has to be a good product. Absolutely. I understand that you have to make money. Absolutely. But if it's about Earth or any other cause, not necessarily wildlife, animals, can be about people, can about other problems, you have to truth, should guide you all time. So you have to put out the truth. First of all, find a way. But if you don't do that, just because you want to produce a cooler product, then we have a problem.
Yeah, I think that's an impediment. That's a hurdle for many people.
You always have to put yourself in the shoes of my clients. My main client is Earth, and then I have sub-clients. Okay, so maybe I'm working for the rhino, maybe I'm working for the whatever, so the vaquita, for the elephant, for the jaguar, for the tiger, for the forest, for the sharks, for the whale. They're all clients. Okay, so imagine that you're doing a documentary or something about them, and imagine that they can talk and see the final product and tell you, hey, but you left out the main thing. They will not get anything. They will not understand why I am dying with this kind of product. So are you working for me, or are you working for yourself, for your ego, for your career, for money? Because if this is the second option, the second answer, then I'm not interested anymore. I'm sorry, I need another one to work for me. And my first responsibility is them. First of all, before the donors, before the my board members, before the media, them first of all, because they cannot talk, they cannot defend themselves. That's simply because of that.
I mean, that's really the point of everything, right? Is to give people, animals a voice that don't have them.
At the same time, you have to, if you're a professional, you have to also, of course, I'm not saying you also have to understand the needs of the entertaining people, right? They need to put out because if they tell the truth and then the product sucks, then also not working, right? So also it's not good for the client. So that's why I got caught in this. And I mean, I decided to create my own production company. We're working already on 2-3 products with the intent of balancing why we are doing it with also being able to do something really nice, really cool that people will enjoy, of course.
And it sounds like you have, I mean, you're obviously successful, but you didn't do it for the success. You didn't do it for all of this has been because you've been following your passion.
Because I was following myself. I still remember myself when I was 6 or 7 years old. I wanted to do this. I'm just following I'm just that person, that small person. I'm still him, right? I'm just doing for that. And so I have no hidden agenda. I can disappear tomorrow, poof, and go back doing whatever I was doing before. I was making 3 times the money. I had weekends and vacation that I don't have anymore. So I don't have any strange agenda. I want just to fulfill not only the dreams, but what even that little boy at 7 years old thought it was important, because someone has to protect Earth. The only realization that I had during the life is that, okay, we need something with more teeth and more professionals, and we need to change the game here. Otherwise, we're always running after these people and will never be ahead of them. So let's create something that will scare them, even to the point of scare them, because I don't want to arrest them all. The point is not to arrest them all. The point is to tell them the games change. Now you cannot do anymore what you have been doing so far with no consequences. I bring in the big boys. In the US, we are working with the Homeland Security. We give information to half the US government about these people. The game changed now. It's your chance to get out of nature crime. Otherwise, we'll get you sooner or later. So we're trying to send this message to these people, and indirectly, of course, because they don't know who we are. We're ghosts as well.
So I have a quick question about the work you've done, especially in Africa, the officials there, and even the people who are supposed to be protecting wildlife are involved in a lot of this trade and this trafficking. Yeah. Have you seen that and experienced that? And has that been an impediment to your work?
Of course. I mean, we have information. It's let's if you pick any big national park in Africa, like Kruger National Park, for example, in South Africa, where they have poaching problems because they have very valuable animals like rhinos or elephants. lots and lots of rangers are on the payroll of bigger poachers and traffickers, of course. But again, we go back to the what we were saying before. Just by turning their face during the night towards another direction, so the gate is open and the poachers can get in. Just by turning the face, they don't have to kill anyone. They get 3 months of salary. Of course, it's so easy. I call it the temptation factor. So sometimes here from the US or from Europe, at our desk, in our nice bubble, because we're all living in bubbles here, we don't understand how it is to grow up in the middle of nowhere in Africa, you know. And so someone arrives and gives you money that you've never seen in your life just by closing your eyes. You close your eyes, of course, you close your eyes. Who are we to tell him not close your eyes? Actually, personally, in Africa, every person who says no is an hero for me, because how can you say no when you have nothing, right? And still we can see it's crazy, because we, from our social media, and whenever we post news, the villain, it's still the poacher. People just don't get. It's very difficult to create, to change the mindset of millions of people around the world who, and we can see, because they leave awful comments that we have to sometimes, censor and take about the poachers. Oh, kill them all. Yes, one poacher died. We are all happy. They don't understand that they're talking about very, very poor people who have nothing. And it's too easy from here, Los Angeles or New York, say something like that. It's not fair.
For those who are really passionate about wildlife like you are, and who have that dream of turning that passion into a career,
right?
What would you tell them?
So what I usually answer is that the fight for Earth changed a lot in the past years, right? In the past few years. Back in the days, when I grew up, actually, was just, was pretty much the job of biologists and scientists, and maybe activists. Okay, yes, Greenpeace and all, But the changed dramatically. So now we need professionals. So of all kinds. So we need good lawyers. We need good cyber expert. We need good media people. We need good writers. So crimes, of course, in my case, crime specialists. So I can tell you, in my organization, we are an environmental organization, right? So the only person in the team with experience in conservation and science is me. All the rest are all walks of life. And that's why, because it's changed a lot, the way you fight for Earth. It's way more complicated at many different levels. So you need real experts and professionals in different fields. So it's kind of easy in a way. I mean, easier maybe than in the past if you have this drive, and if you want to do that, but you're not particularly interested in biology and zoology and conservation, you can still work for an organization like us with coming from a completely different background. Of course, we use a lot of people. We use a lot of people with experience in crime and fighting crime at different levels, of course, but it's not just us. Of course, even large NGOs now have all kind of professionals working for them.
And it sounds like you're all working towards a common goal. So even though they might not be interested in biology, they might be more interested in criminal justice.
For example,
they have a passion for the planet. And
absolutely. My great example is my senior, I call it senior, but she's 28, 29. So the main analyst that we have in our company, she's been working with us for a few years. And she studied crime and international relationship and terrorism, and she did a couple of masters and internships, and then she came working with us, with zero, never studied, but she has this passion. She wants to use those skills to fight for this cause. So it's totally possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your time.